I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders. This week, we're stunned like the rest of the nation as we've watched in the last 2 weeks since the killing of George Floyd. Chuck, what do you think the ramifications of this will be going forward in politics and policing?
Let me start with a quote from President Abraham Lincoln. He said, "Public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Against it, nothing can succeed." I think we have finally reached a tipping point in the country and in Wisconsin where public opinion now says this must stop. I think there will be major changes in how we handle policing going forward. I think we'll realize that we need more mental health concentration. We need to do a better job of making sure that when we hire people that they go through rigorous psychological testing. The most dangerous thing that I saw in that Minneapolis video is that the experienced member of the force was the one who was teaching the rookies, the two rookies with him, and the guy who's only 2 years out. This is the right way to handle this. That is deeply disturbing. That has to stop. Police departments have to change, and state governments and local governments are frankly going to be the focal point to make that change. This is a good example where I enjoy being in state government because you could do so much more than in many ways than the federal government. This is something that will be left at the hands of state government and local. So for example, there is a legislative bill already that's been introduced to change some police practices. I could see that passing. I think the tipping point has come with people, and I think local governments will be making changes as well.
I agree with you that there's a national consensus at the moment. There's overwhelming support for the protest. There's overwhelming opposition to the looting. There's bipartisan majorities for lots of changes in policies at the police departments with regard to how suspects are restrained, with how we deal with bad officers, how we keep bad officers out of the force, even with the demilitarization of a lot of urban police departments. So I think there's a great deal of consensus here, but I'm very worried because in this moment we can actually seize this moment and get something done. I see people on both the right and the left pushing forward extreme ideas that I think could possibly bust up this consensus. I'm worried when I see people in Minneapolis say we should get rid of the police department, or people in Madison, activists on State Street, actually not only supporting the looting, but facilitating it. And on the right, I see people who are making excuses for police brutality. And saying that the victims are responsible for what happened to them. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. There's lots of terrible things being said by people on the extremes here. So I am hopeful that we can hold together this consensus, because we need to have progress on these issues, and we need both Republicans and Democrats to work together to get it done soon.
I think that a lot of what Scott is saying is correct and true. I would say this. It is a time for leadership, and it would be good if the president could exercise positive national leadership and not try to put out a tweet that says a 75-year-old man who's been involved in the peace movement for years is part of Antifa. That does not help. It only emboldens people on the right. I think that most people, including Joe Biden, have said, look, we're not talking about eliminating police departments. What we're talking about is doing things to change things so that we do a better job. And by the way, one of the things that police officers recognize is they are not equipped to handle many situations. We need more mental health services, but we do need to change, and police departments need to change. And there have to be major changes as to who is doing that policing. One of the disturbing things beyond George Floyd's death, which is almost indescribable in terms of its awfulness and how bad it is, to think that someone would do that to another human being. One of the other things that bothered me was police officers knocking over people like the 75-year-old gentleman, or even going after a cameraman. These are not the behaviors that you expect from police officers who are there to actually keep the peace. So let's try to keep together. Let's try to exercise leadership. By the way, I think Governor Evers' statements have been right on point. They've done a good job of striking a balance. And I think that we will move forward together, and it will be a good time afterwards. But this is very challenging times, and I think we do have to recognize that we cannot walk away from this without things changing.
Well, let's hope that in this moment the center holds. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.